I'm going to go ahead and let's just check what file we're going to receive. We're going to be sent to file.php, which doesn't at the moment exist, but we can see that it will go there for demonstration purposes. So we now want to go ahead and actually choose a file. I'm going to choose a file tartan.jpg, and you'll see that the form, the parent form of this input element, has automatically been submitted to the file that we specified. And it really is as simple as that. We've submitted or changed this file type, and we've gone and actually submitted it to file.php. So obviously that couldn't be found, but you get the general idea. That's how easy it is to go ahead and submit the form, the parent element for this particular field here. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is look at an input selector. So let's just say instead of inside this form we have a file, we're going to change this to a select element. So let's outline the select element, and we'll place some options inside. Now remember, I said in the first part of the tutorial we have a default option choose, so I'm just going to set that to choose. I'm then going to choose a couple more options, and I'm going to change the method of this form to get, so we can see which option that we're selecting. So I'm going to say value equals default, and in here I'm going to say option 1, and here I'm going to say option 2, and the value here is going to be option 1, or opt1 for short, and the value here is going to be opt2, option 2 for short. So now when we refresh, we've got this form where we can click option 1, option 2, or we can revert back to choose. Now what we want to do is we want to have the form submit with the select thing. So I'm going to give this a name, and this is just going to be selected. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be submitting a variable called selected to file.php, obviously through get variables. We're either going to be able to submit the value default, opt1 or opt2, but what we want to happen is we only want to submit this form when this changes. So what we can go ahead and do is we can say we can give this a particular name. I'll do it with the ID selection rather than the type selection. I'm going to give this an ID of, let's say, options. So here what we can do in our page, we'll just go ahead and get rid of this. I'm going to say select hash, because we're referencing this by an ID, and that's options. And I'm going to say dot change, and again obviously we create a function inside of it. I'm going to pull this down and just create an alert dialog with changed, and in a minute we're going to go ahead and output the value of this. So when I choose something, it's changed, we get this alert box here, even when we go to choose. Okay, so what I want to do is now just alert out the value of the option that we've selected, and we'll see how that works. So I'm going to say value is equal to, I'm going to say this dot attribute value. So now when I alert out value, it will alert out the value that's associated with the choice. So option 1, you can see we've got opt1. Option 2, you can see we've got opt2, but when we click choose, we get this default value. So what we want to do is, our aim of this is to submit the form once we've selected an option, but we don't want to submit it if it's selected the default value. So what we do is we create an if statement, obviously with our condition here, and we're going to say if value is equal to, or is not equal to, sorry, default, then what we want to do is we want to submit the form. So we can either reference the form using an ID, so we could give this an ID, or we could use the parent traversing selector again. So I'm going to just use the parent function again, it would just be a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and say this dot parent dot submit. So if the value that we gain every time we make a selection or a change doesn't equal default, then we can submit. Otherwise we don't want to submit the form. Let's just go ahead and choose option 1. You can see that that's been submitted to file.php with selected now equal to option 1. Let's go ahead and choose option 2. We do the same, but the selected is now option 2. Because we've included our if statement, the condition is where the value doesn't equal default, the choose value does, so when we click it, we don't have the form actually submit. So we need to think about this when we have default values. You know, we don't want to submit things when we have default values, because then we're going to be submitting something that might not be picked up in this case, file.php. So that's how we will go ahead. How we would go ahead and submit a form without using a submit button with jQuery. We've looked at a file example which is extremely useful and applicable, where you would select a file or an image and have it uploaded and processed straight away with no clicking of buttons to save your users time. Or when you were to go ahead and change a select option or a select field or a select element, sorry, and then you could obviously check against the default value whilst submitting if the option is something that you want to allow the user to submit. So that's submitting forms in jQuery without a submit button.